Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Chris Dayley, who is the VP of Site Testing with Disruptive Advertising. Welcome to the program, Chris.
Thanks. It's nice to be on the show, Mike.
Hey, so I love looking at names of companies and thinking, why did you choose that? And way back in the day when Amazon was started, people were like, what's an Amazon? Well, now we just think of it as Amazon. But Disruptive Advertising, I love that name because, you know, there's all the disruptosauruses out there and all the business things and the trends that are, you know, if you're a disruptor, you know, now you're talking because you're breaking out from the crowd and you're in the blue ocean, not the red ocean. So tell us a little bit about what disruptive advertising is and what is your competitive advantage.
Yeah, I think disruptive advertising is a fun name for two reasons. Number one, because we're an advertising agency, we want to communicate the idea that, you know, we are helping our clients disrupt their industries. So we want to give them a competitive advantage. We want to help them stand out among the crowd because, you know, there's so many marketing sources today. There's so many things that you can do to market your brand. That sometimes it's really easy to just kind of be mediocre at everything. And we don't want that for our clients. You know, we want our clients to excel, to be excellent at a few things, so that they can really stand out. And so, you know, we offer just a few targeted services. We offer pay-per-click advertising to help people, run ads on Google and Facebook. And then my area of expertise is helping companies convert that traffic once it comes to their website. And so we're really just, you know, in that very focused space of finding your ideal, customer, targeting them, bringing them to your site and getting them converted. The second reason that I love the name Disruptive Advertising is for us personally as a company. There are a lot of marketing agencies out there. And in fact, I mean, my background, I have worked at several marketing agencies. I started my own marketing agency and then ended up merging here with Disruptive Advertising. So I've been involved, and I think a lot of us here at Disruptive Advertising have been involved in many different agencies. We're based out of Utah, and Utah is kind of a hotbed for digital marketing. And so what we really wanted to communicate is that, you know, there are a lot of marketing agencies that you can go with. There's a lot of one-stop shops that do everything for you. And what we want to communicate is, look, we're specialists in a couple of areas. We're awesome in those areas. And we can really disrupt the industry by really just focusing on these areas and being awesome.
You know, I love that. It's just that whole specialization and not being all things to all people. And I was just listening to another interview this morning where people were saying that is a big downfall of any business, and maybe even for clients that you guys work with, where you see they try to be too broad, too wide. So yeah, when you can stand out and have that competitive advantage and be disruptive, as your name says, that's so huge. It makes me think of an interesting question, and from a strategy standpoint, at what point, working with some of the strategies that you deliver to your clients, do you guys then have to look two steps beyond where they're heading? Kind of like how it's said about the hockey puck. You know, I skate where the puck is going, not where it is. But as far as when do you start seeing some clues that what you're doing needs to be just pivoted just a touch so that they always stay disruptive and some of their competitors aren't watching what they're doing, what you're doing for them, and then kind of doing the same thing? And because you always have to stay one step ahead of that competition. Is that part of what you guys are helping to guide the strategy with your clients as well?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. And so I'll tell you kind of what my personal approach is at marketing and how that helps, you know, how businesses can kind of stay ahead of that hockey puck, like you're saying. And the biggest thing is really about constantly challenging your assumptions about what works and testing those with your audience. Because the biggest challenge that a lot of businesses have is they find something works, they commit to that direction, they make a decision, they commit, and then they are just down that path forever, no matter whether it's working or not. And, and so they figure out that a certain billboard in a certain location works, and they just own that billboard for the rest of their lives. Or, they figure out that a certain message works or certain image on their site, somebody told them that they really liked that image on their site. And so the business owner is just committed to that image for the rest of its existence. And the fact of the matter is we live in a very rapidly changing, fast-paced industry where, technology is evolving and shifting constantly, where the internet, behavior on the internet is evolving extremely quickly. And people's behavior, whether it's on a mobile device or whether it's on, an actual computer, people's behavior shifts so quickly that if you're not challenging what you think works with your audience, you're going to find yourself falling behind everybody else. You're going to find yourself, or you're going to find that you start copying what competitors are doing, and you don't even know if what they're doing is working. You just don't know that what you're doing is not working. And so,
I think the problem with that copying thing is it may work for them for hidden reasons, for reasons that you can't tell on the outset. And it might be whatever, the CEO is a known industry leader in whatever, and yet you're looking at some campaign they did and thinking it worked because it did for them, but then you launch it and it just dies on the vine.
Absolutely. And there are so many factors that play with what works for different companies. Who your audience is, when you're running the campaign. This is something that I deal with on a website basis all the time when we're running split tests on different designs on a website. A lot of companies will, when they go and redesign their site, for example, they will, they'll put together this big, huge site redesign. They'll just launch it. So they'll replace their current site, launch it, and then see if metrics go up or down. And the problem with that is maybe metrics are going to go up or down anyways. Maybe just like this week just happens to be, a really high buying week or a really low buying week for your audience. And, you launch this new site and you attribute all of that to this new site design. Same thing with any kind of marketing campaign you run. And if you're not being very data-driven, being very methodical with how you test these things, how you measure, how you are targeting your audience, you're going to make a lot of incorrect assumptions about what's working and what's not working that can really get you in trouble. I've talked to a lot of marketers that end up 10 steps down a marketing strategy, and they're like, I can't figure out why this isn't working. And you look back in the first couple of steps of that strategy, and they made a lot of really big assumptions that didn't pan out later on. And so it's critical that you're willing to test these things.
I was just going to say, with your focus yourself on the testing aspect, and you mentioned about the big launch or the multi-steps, campaign, if you do too much too soon, you don't know what caused the good change or the bad change. So with the site redesign, sure, you're not going to launch, the whole look and feel of a site in stages. You're going to do a site redesign, but from a marketing strategy standpoint, maybe you're going to do an opt-in page on the upper right where the heat map says it should be, and just going to test that thing. And then maybe you're going to move it to another spot and test that. Maybe you're going to do a video from the CEO or one of the sales team instead of just a plain, whatever. So where do you draw the line on testing in the sense that, you can't just do one change and then test that for 2 months, because you could have dozens and dozens and dozens of changes that need to be made, but at the same time, you can't just throw it all out there and then just see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so you're spot on there. And the thing that we typically look at with, when we're running tests is finding out what things influence your audience the most. And so, as you go through, you're mentioning, testing some of these smaller things one step at a time. As you start to test some of these things, you figure out this thing really impacts conversion rate. This thing really impacts our audience behavior. And then some other things don't. And sometimes it's the things that businesses care about the most. Like, a lot of businesses really care, like, what picture's on every page. Mm-hmm. It's got to communicate like this lifestyle, or it's got to communicate who we are. It's got to have a picture of our leadership team on every page, whatever. And you run a test on that image, you swap it out maybe you just test removing that image, and the audience just doesn't really care. And so what we usually do is, we'll figure out what things really impact the audience, and we'll test those things by themselves. And then all the other stuff that the audience doesn't care about, you can usually just test all of that in one big fell swoop, and kind of move a little bit more rapidly that way. That way you're really focusing your time and attention on the stuff that matters. And, and all the rest of the stuff is really just, if the audience doesn't care, then you get to just pick what you like anyway. So,
it's kind of like how I've heard, and this might be common, you might have heard it too, but, Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he tested the title with Google AdWords, and he, said, launching new book called whatever, and he had some other title, and then he tested 2 or 3 or 4 versions, and the 4-Hour Workweek just was astronomically more impressive. So is that an element? You mentioned pay-per-click management, and I know that you could, go on for hours on how you guys do that, but I'm just wondering, is there a way to use pay-per-click to test even the site design like you're mentioning? Because maybe a company doesn't have, massive steady traffic right now, but maybe you can, amplify that a bit with some pay-per-click traffic so that you can then get some good A/B testing metrics.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We do that all the time. And there's just one caveat that I put with that, and that is, so if you get organic traffic to your site, so people that are just finding you on Google, not through ads, and then you throw some ads out there to try to amplify the amount of traffic you get for a test, for example. You just have to take into consideration that these people that you are buying, quote unquote, these ads that you're putting out there that people are responding to, may be attracting a slightly different audience than you get regularly, than you get on an organic basis. And so, the great thing you can do is when you're testing a site design, you can segment those 2 different audiences and see how they respond individually. So, you can run the test for all traffic and see how everybody responds to it. And you can say, all right, well, let's look at how our organic traffic responded versus our paid traffic. Mm-hmm. And if it's all the same, then that's great. And if it's different, then you have some decisions to make at that point. And, to figure out, okay, well, do we want to have 2 different versions of the site that we want to send people into? Or do we want to pick the one that our organic audience likes? Or do we want to pick the one that the paid traffic likes? And let's just focus more on paid traffic. But yeah, that's a great way to kind of blow up your site for a couple of months while you're trying to test some new radical ideas on your site, and get some business out of it while you're at it as well.
Yeah, it's like real-time true testing, but sure, you might pick up some long-term, visitors or, people on your newsletter list or whatever, but how do you differentiate between what to lean more toward, the paid traffic or the organic? Because I know I have seen some metrics where to one particular site, the bounce rate was, let's call it 54% on organic, but 84% on paid. Well, does that mean you should not do paid at all? No, maybe not, but that does say something.
Absolutely. And in that kind of a situation, and I'm a huge advocate of personalizing your site, of customizing it for your audience. And so one big customization that a lot of businesses don't think about but should is mobile versus desktop. Your mobile audience. And I hear all the time people that are running ads to their site, and they say, we try to not get any mobile traffic because our mobile traffic just converts so poorly. And so what they're doing is they're just making an assumption that the traffic is the problem. Mobile traffic just sucks, and so we just don't get it, versus maybe looking at it and saying, well, maybe our site just sucks, and mobile users don't like our site experience, and maybe if we changed the mobile site experience, because I see this all the time. I've run tests with companies where we put together, a personalized mobile experience, and we'll see 100 to 200% increases in conversion rates with a single test. Now that's not a typical result that you see on an A/B test, but that just speaks to the fact that a lot of people are not thinking about some of these segments. And so when you're asking the question, well, what should I err in favor of? Should I lean towards one audience versus the other? My answer is no. You should do both.
Yep.
And it's not that much more difficult to have two different site experiences, one that is for one audience and one that's for another. I mean, it does require a little bit more upfront work, but the result is so much more impactful that it's almost crazy not to do that.
I've even heard of some people recommending, paid traffic, let's say from Facebook as an example. You would have whatever your ad is, your compelling ad, and then when they click on it, they go to a page on your website where maybe there's even a headline or even a video that says, hey, welcome Facebook visitors, and that immediately catches them to go, hey, I did come from Facebook, and maybe that keeps them there 3 seconds longer than they would have, and then maybe they stay a little bit longer. But even personalization like that could work, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And, there is really great personalization that you can do that speaks to your audience. And then with the amount of targeting you can do in today's world, you can also get into like the creepy retargeting where you're like,
yep.
where you're like, hey, user from Phoenix, Arizona, that's 25 male, check out our product. And so, you don't want to go onto the creepy side. But like you mentioned, we do this a lot where maybe your brand has something that's really recognizable. So maybe, like you said, maybe you're really big on Facebook. Maybe your owner is a famous YouTuber. Maybe, you've got a radio ad that lots of people are familiar with. So, on whatever YouTube channel, it's heard on, on the radio or welcome, our fans of this. That can absolutely capture people's attention, and they'll go, oh, this is for me. They're speaking to me, instead of it just feeling like, just a bland, organic site experience that, so the more you can really engage your audience and capture their attention and realize that this is for them, the better your site is going to convert.
That makes total sense, and I have a feeling that we have probably just taken our first breath into scratching the surface of what all we could talk about, and we could probably go on for hours and hours. But let's just wrap up with what's the best way that people can learn more about disruptive advertising and your services and some of the testing that you could do for them to maximize their campaigns.
Sure, yeah. So we've put together a starter guide actually for people who are interested in doing testing on their site. So if people go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, there's a free download that has a bunch of tools that you can use to get started, lots of strategies that you might want to think about as you think about testing your site. And then of course we'd love to talk to anybody who has additional questions. So if people want to reach out on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, just at Chris Dayley. My last name is Dayley.
Excellent. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful getting to know you and your company.
Thanks for having me on the show, Mike. My pleasure.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.